If you've ever struggled with writing sales copy, then this is the video for you. We're going to go through 10 magic tips that will up-level your conversion copywriting. Not only allowing you to elevate your Canva sales pages, but also giving you the skills and tools so that you can captivate your audience and drive conversions whenever you need to write sales copy. Copywriting for sales pages and sales materials in general is known as conversion copywriting. And the whole intention behind it is to get people to a point where they're ready to make a decision, to go from visitors or viewers to buyers. Now, there are a lot of ways to do this, and there are a lot of techniques that copywriters use to achieve this. And great conversion copywriters have honed their skill over years and decades, so you can never really replace that kind of skill. But there are tips and techniques that we can learn so that anytime you need to write sales copy, you can write it in a way that feels more comfortable for you, but that actually converts. So tip number one, ironically, isn't really about copywriting, but it's about the preparation to copyright. And it really is one of the most important things to get right. And this is about knowing your audience. Now, this is the kind of stuff that comes from research, from experience, from talking to your audience, getting to know them. It's about knowing what their pain points are and the things that keep them up at night, the frustrations they have. But it's also knowing about what they ultimately want to achieve. It's about knowing their dreams or where they want to get to with their business. And if you can really nail that and understand what your customers want, it makes such a big difference in being able to talk directly to them, and that leads to better conversions. Now, the thing is, this is not just about the very obvious things about the fact that, for example, they don't know how to build a website. It's about what that means to them. It's about understanding that that makes them feel less confident, or feels like they're not as successful as someone else, or makes them feel like they're behind. All of those kind of things can help you to really talk directly to that one customer. Another great thing to do is, if you've done your research and you have the experience of talking to these customers, is to mirror the language that they use. We all tend to use terms and language that is specific to our industry, but often that's not the language that resonates with the people we're talking to. So getting to really know them means that you can use the terms that they use for the frustrations, the pain points, and what they're trying to achieve. And that's a great start to getting your copywriting right for them. Tip number two is start from the end and work backwards. And what I mean by that is that the whole purpose behind conversion copywriting is to get to that end result. You want them to click buy or to click join, whatever your call to action is. So what you need to do is work backwards from where you want them to be and think about how you can get them there. What are the steps along the way that will make them feel ready to click that button? Ultimately, with conversion copywriting, there's one objective. And a great way to do it is to just think about that one objective and think about one customer or client or visitor, your ideal customer, client, or visitor. Think about how you would talk to that person and guide them along the process. And think about the objections that they have along the way, so that as you're working through that to get them to that one objective, you can essentially counter or allay their fears on any of the objections that they have. Number three, which is a really important one for me, is to be human. Be empathetic and try and really connect with your audience. Another big part of this sort of whole tip is really to keep it simple. One of the best things you can do is to talk to your audience in a way that they can understand quickly and easily, particularly when we're talking about online materials. And there are little things that you can do that help to engage people and get them involved. And one of them is keeping it simple. The other is talking about we or you instead of talking about I. Anything that makes people feel like you get them and they are part of a community, they're a part of an audience that is all in the same place, that makes people feel like they're not so alone, and that's a great thing to remember when writing in this kind of tone of voice. As I mentioned, part of this is just stay away from jargon and terminology that is pretty standard for your industry, but that they may not get. Acronyms and terms that we throw around every single day in our industries, people really may not know what they mean, especially if they're still early in their journey. So try and stay away from that. Write simply and to the point. The objective here is not to baffle them with bullshit and overwhelm them with different terms. It's about connecting with them and making them feel like you're talking directly to them. So tip number 4 is to be confident in your writing. Ultimately, I have to believe that you're confident in your product or whatever you're selling. So that needs to come across in the way that you talk to them, because it instills them with confidence and it also makes them trust you. Now, this isn't about bragging or being cocky, and believe me, as somebody who's lived most of my life in the UK, the British are pretty good at underplaying things. And the best thing you can do with copywriting like this is not to kind of suggest that people do something or ask them if they may like to do something. It's to tell them confidently. Tell them to visit this link. Tell them to see how this works. Don't ask them or suggest that they may like to go here. Tell them, this is what you need. Have a look at this. That kind of confidence comes across. And as I say, it is a fine line between confident and cocky, but just in the language that you use, try and make sure that it's very active language. It's not about requesting somebody does something or suggesting. It's about asking them directly. It's about showing them what's great about this and telling them what the best course of action is for them based on your knowledge of who they are. So tip number 5 is, again, interestingly, not really about the actual copywriting. Number 5 is to realize that part of copywriting is the visual impact of what you've written and how you've written it. And of course, the first thing, the most important thing with all of this is that your copy has to be readable. And these days we have to consider that it's readable on all devices. So bear that in mind, because almost 50% of e-commerce traffic these days is bought through mobile. And if people can't read your copy because it's too small on a mobile device, that could be a real problem for your conversions. Another important part of this is about the actual structure, the visual hierarchy of your copy. Now, with most sales pages and sales copy in general, people tend to first scan the copy. So they only read about 20% of what's actually on the page initially. So they need to be absolutely sure that they're getting the right and most important information. And we do that with a visual hierarchy. In other words, make sure you've used headings and subheadings. Make sure you use short paragraphs that are easy for people to read and scan and digest. Break things down into bullet points or numbered lists. And make sure that the copy doesn't feel overwhelming so that they don't leave the page and never come back. You want things that really work visually, that looks like it's easy to read, easy to digest, and encourages them to carry on and see what's next. And of course, I would not be a designer if I didn't mention white space. Now, white space doesn't literally mean that the area has to be white. It's just about allowing breathing room for your text. Don't put paragraphs too close to each other or sections in a row with loads of text. Break it up with one single big line or heading. Break it up with a small image or an icon. Make sure that you allow space around the text, because not only is it visually appealing, but research has shown that white space around big pieces of copy and text, and pieces of copy and text broken into smaller chunks, actually helps with comprehension and understanding. And you are trying to get your message across here in as quick and easy a way as you can. So make sure that you look at the visual impact of what you've written and how it looks on the page. Of course, if you do struggle with the layout and the design of sales pages, you can always go to the link in the description below this video or that's on the screen right now, and you can download my free Canva sales page template. I have laid that out with all of the different elements and sections that you may need. It includes bullet pointed sections, numbered sections, and it's all laid out in a way that the information is easily understandable and scannable, and easy for you to customize for yourself. And in fact, along with that template comes a series of videos which helps train you on how to create a high converting sales page, as well as a PDF that guides you through the structure. And also in the template, I've created copy prompts for each section that helps you write your copy for your Canva sales page. Number 6 is probably one of the most important tips when it comes to conversion copywriting. And this is about talking to people and selling the benefits rather than the features of your product or course or program or coaching. So this is what people talk about when they, for example, talk about the why of a product or a company. It's not so much about the actual technical specifics about what your product does. It's about the benefit it delivers to the person who's using it. So for example, as I mentioned earlier, having a website that somebody wants a really nice website. Now, telling them that you can create a website that's got X amount of pages and it has this loading speed and it has all that is great. But actually, those are the things that should come secondary. To appeal to them first and get them on board, you should be talking about how that website will present them. What will it allow them to do? How will it allow them to feel? Will they feel more confident? Will they get their ideal client? Will they look like they belong in this industry? Will they feel like they've arrived? All of these things are about the benefit that it gives to people, not just in terms of the business benefit, but in terms of the emotional or personal benefit. I tend to think about it in an external and internal benefit. So the external would be, what does this do for you? What does it allow you to do or achieve? The internal is, how will this make you feel? How will this put you in a place that is better for you as a person? And those are really motivating factors. They tap into human emotions, and that's what really connects with people. Now, I know this is tricky, but it is worth spending the time to try and nail down that language about what the benefit is, which again comes from understanding your customers. I know, for example, artists often have a problem with thinking through things like this because they create beautiful art and they don't often really think about the benefit it adds to people apart from that they have a beautiful piece of art that's made by someone. Now, the benefits to that could be that that piece of art makes someone's house feel more like a home to them. Or it could be that your art inspires them when they see it every day. Or it could be that your particular piece of art makes them feel calm every time they look at it. Those are the benefits. The actual specifications of the art really doesn't matter. The emotional reaction to the art is what you should be tapping into. And as I say, that goes for all other products too. And the last thing is kind of tied to all of this as part of this tip, which is to try and emphasize action when you talk about things. So, for example, with a computer, instead of saying, well, this is the fastest computer that you'll ever see, actually what we should be doing is talking about what you'll be able to do with this computer because it's so fast. So the focus is on the action, what you can do with it, what you can achieve with it, rather than just, again, on the features or specifications. As I say, it's a really great way of appealing to the human being behind the reader or behind the screen. So bear that in mind when you're writing your copy. It makes a big difference. Okay, so on to number 7. Now, number 7 is my favorite thing that I talk about with sales pages, and it's social proof. Social proof is absolutely essential. Now, by social proof, I mean things like testimonials or reviews. I mean things like actual result stories from existing clients or customers. I mean the proof as well as the anecdotes. Now, the reason this works so well and is so essential is because it makes people feel like they can trust you. You saying something about yourself is one thing. Other people saying good things about you is what's really convincing. So don't neglect social proof in your sales copy. Even if it's just one line and you don't have a lot of other testimonials, make sure you include it. Even if it's a social media comment that you can use a grab of where someone has said something nice to you or about your work or your product, make sure you include those things on your sales pages. It's about showing those people that other human beings like them have achieved results. And what that does is make them feel like it's possible for them. People want to feel like they're not alone, and they also want to believe that this can work for them. So show them that it does by giving them examples of other people who have succeeded. Number 8 is all about pushing the button, and we're talking about experimenting with your calls to action. Now, calls to action are really no time to be super clever. You don't want them to be obtuse or to make people have to think about them. It needs to be clear what you want them to do, and if possible, also hint at the benefit of doing this. So for example, just a button that says click here will probably work. A button that says start your success journey now is even better because it appeals to that emotion. So experiment with calls to action and make sure that within your copywriting they are large, they are differentiated in color when the design is put together, and it's easy for people to see where they're supposed to click, even if they're just scanning the page. Another quick note just on a design side is on a sales page or anything that requires multiple scrolls of a website or even on a mobile device, make sure you have multiples of the same call to action all the way along the page. At any point, somebody might be ready to buy or click or go further, and you want them to be able to find one of those really quickly without having to scroll through an entire page. Another quick thing to mention here, which actually ties in with all of the language that we've been talking about here, but especially with call to action, is there is really good reason to include a sense of urgency or scarcity. Things that are limited edition, things that have a timer that are going to run out at some point, they encourage people to take action. It's not about manipulating people or lying to them. It's about giving people a deadline so that they are encouraged to take action. So urgency is great, but don't use fear. Don't try and tell people that if they don't click this button, they're going to be stuck the rest of their life. Because that's the kind of language that makes people feel like you are against them instead of trying to wish them well. I know that it works sometimes. Fear can be a great driver for people in terms of, sleazy sales tactics. For me personally, I want people to feel like they're buying into this because they know that I can help them, not because they're terrified of the alternative. And my number 9 suggestion is to be ruthlessly efficient, especially when you're editing your work. We all have an inclination to kind of over-explain, to sometimes use 2 or 3 sentences to explain something or direct someone to something when we could use 1. Now, in conversion copywriting, keeping things simple and concise is really important. This is not about massively entertaining people. This is about getting them to click the button. So, as William Faulkner, the writer, said, you have to kill your darlings. Even if there's things in the page that you think are great, when you read it back, if you feel like it's not needed, edit it out. You could always add things in later. But you only get that one shot for a first impression with these pages, so make sure that you edit ruthlessly. Remember, the 2 key things is that this needs to be readable and scannable so that people understand it quickly and easily. And the second thing is, there is only one thing we want them to do. So remember, everything has to be driving them to that one objective. And we come to number 10 on our list. Number 10 is a really easy one, and it's one that so many people overlook. Tip number 10 is to read it out loud. Even if your page is never going to be read out loud by the people who are looking at it online or on a written document, read it out loud. You will be surprised how easy it is to find places to edit, how easy it is to find places that don't sound human when you read it out loud as opposed to just reading it on screen. It's really an old trick, but it works, and it really makes all the difference in hearing how that would make you feel if you read it, and hearing how you say it. So what does it sound like to you? If it sounds sleazy and you're uncomfortable reading it out loud, then it's time for you to edit. But make sure that before you put it out there, you read your text out loud so that you can get a gauge for how the other person will hear it when they read it in their head. So there we have 10 tips to help you really up-level your conversion copywriting. I really hope this has been helpful. If you enjoyed this and you did find it helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button below and also sign up for my design digest called Meaningful Creations. It goes out every week, and there is a link to sign up for that in the description below the video or on screen right now. Thanks again, folks. Have a fabulous day.